All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Todd Worsham, and I'm with Education Dynamics and UniversitiesAbroad.com. And today we're going to go through a session all about earning your full degree abroad that I have entitled So You Want to Study Abroad? Now what? So, what are some things you should be considering? What's sort of the facts on the ground today in terms of what students are going abroad for, what are they studying, where are they going? Really give you a good sort of bird's eye view on the whole sort of subject of possibly earning your degree abroad. Provide you with some information that you can take away to continue your research on your own. So let's get right into it. So first, an agenda for today. You're going to get to know a little bit more about me first, just so you sort of know where I'm coming from, what my experiences are, and why I'm able to talk on this issue a little bit. We're going to consider or go over some reasons you might be considering studying abroad, sort of what the facts are revolving around students that are currently studying abroad to earn their full degree that are from the U.S., where they go, what they study, etc. We're also going to cover what to expect while you're applying, once you arrive on campus, once you graduate. And then we're going to do a wrap-up and a Q&A. And just one note about the Q&A. As the session goes on, please feel free to type questions into the chat box. I am going to hold off on answering all questions until the end of the session because it can get a little complicated trying to sort of jump in and out of doing the actual presentation and answering questions. So please just keep questions coming, and then at the end I'll go up to the top and sort of go through and knock out all the questions, and also might sort of deal with possibly duplicate questions. Also, at the end of the presentation, I will be giving out my email address, so if anyone has any questions after the session or something they don't want to ask in the session, you're more than welcome to email me directly, and I'd be happy to get the information for you and send that to you and do anything I can to help you out. So first, a little bit about me. So, as I said, my name is Todd Worsham. I graduated from Penn State in 2007. One of my first jobs out of college was working for Kaplan Test Prep for over 4 years. Literally educated and sort of came in contact with thousands of students as they were preparing for and applying to their next education institution. So, I worked with a lot of students that were college bound and dealing with SATs and applying to start their undergraduate program. Also worked with a lot of students that were going to law school, med school, graduate school, business school, etc. So I really had a lot of interaction with students that were really at a phase very similar to where you are right now. Also, while I was with Kaplan, I served as a DSO, which stands for Designated School Official. And really what that is a DSO is a person who works for a academic institution that is able to issue visas, and basically they work with students that have been accepted into the program to issue them visas and then make sure they're sort of abiding by all the regulations the government has set up once they're actually studying in the country. So I currently work for Education Dynamics, and as I said in the previous slide, I work specifically with a website called UniversitiesAbroad.com. That is the newest website from Education Dynamics that's specifically focused around helping U.S.-based institutions recruit international students. So I also do some work with our other international products, one of which is StudyAbroad.com, which I'm trying to point to above me. There it is. And I'll be talking about that a little bit more as the presentation goes on. And just one more little personal thing about me is that, I really love to travel. One of the things that attracted me to the job right now is that it is dealing with the international market. It is going to give me some opportunities to travel abroad in the future, and it's something that I've really just, as the world gets more and more global, I saw the benefit of stepping into a position that would allow me to interact with people all over the world, start developing a global network, and really get some exposure to doing business internationally. So just to show you how much I love to travel, we'll sort of do a little slideshow of some pictures. So this is me and my fiance at the time and in Mexico at a pyramid. This is us once we were actually married on our honeymoon in Machu Picchu. That's her and I enjoying ourselves there. This picture is just of me doing a pose down on a beach with a sea lion in the Galapagos Islands. So that was a lot of fun. And Lastly, here's a picture of me and a buddy of mine as we were doing a hike around the middle of nowhere in a park in Pennsylvania. And so, as you can see, I certainly like to get out there and sort of experience the world and have an adventure or two. But, one of the biggest things I regret is not having studied abroad while I was an undergraduate, earning my bachelor's degree at Penn State. It's something that, I really deeply regret, and it's something that, because of that, I'm really happy to be able to be here today to talk to you about the possibility of studying abroad for you to earn your full degree, because I think it would be a great experience for many students, and it's something that not many people really think about as an option, and it really is. So let's get right into it. So first, what are some reasons why you might be considering going abroad? So I'm sure most of you, the reason you're here is because you've probably thought about this at some point in your life. So what are some reasons you might be going abroad? Maybe just to take the road less traveled. You want to have an adventure. You want to do something a little bit different than what your peers are doing. Maybe you've just always, sort of had a traveler's itch and you want to get out there and explore the world. It's a perfectly valid reason to want to possibly go abroad to earn your degree. Maybe you just want to gain international experience. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you realize that, the direction the world is heading is one that is more globalized, one where borders are becoming less and less significant, and people are, crossing borders more than ever to travel, to do business, to just, meet new people. So really gaining that valuable international experience might be a reason you're going abroad or considering going abroad. Maybe you have a specific need to go abroad with the sort of career path you want to pursue. Maybe you want to be a translator. Maybe you want to be someone who studies Asian cultures or the Middle East, and being immersed in that specific culture will allow you to learn more about it firsthand and become more of an expert. It will allow you to develop connections in that area. Also help you maybe learn a language that you wouldn't be able to do if you weren't being fully immersed in a culture for a number of years. So maybe you've got a specific need to go abroad. Another reason that some people consider going abroad is cost. This is one that, not many people think of, but actually when you look at education institutions outside of the US and compare them to comparable institutions in the US, tuition-wise, so in terms of what you're going to be paying for your tuition, universities overseas actually offer a pretty good deal. And I've put together just a quick little comparison chart so you can take a look at that. So as you can see, I've pulled out Cambridge University in the UK and Harvard University in Massachusetts. And the number you see there on the left is the one-year tuition cost for those programs. So just tuition, just what you're going to be paying for classes. And as you can see, between Cambridge and Harvard, ranked number 2 and number 3 globally, there's about a $13,000 difference. So after 4 years of tuition, that would be, let's do the math real quick, $52,000 difference in what you would be paying for your tuitions. That's a pretty big gap there. And again, I pulled out 2 more universities that are comparable. McGill University is in Canada. Duke University is obviously down in North Carolina. And as you can see there, there's also a very great difference in terms of the tuition cost, and their ranks are comparable. So you're looking at comparable programs that have vastly different costs in terms of tuition. So while some parts of going abroad might be a little more expensive, especially, traveling back and forth and having to buy extra insurance or get a international cell phone, things of that nature, you are going to be saving a lot of money on tuition potentially. So it's something to think about. So now that we sort of know some reasons about why you might be going abroad, who's currently going abroad? How many students are going abroad to earn their full degree? What are they studying? What do they look like? And luckily we've got a really great resource to help us figure that out. And I actually found a study that was conducted by the Institute of International Education, IIE. It's a really great resource. I use them a lot in my day-to-day business in terms of doing research. They did a survey of students that are outbound from the US that are earning their full degree abroad. And what they did is they studied the top 13 countries that are receiving US students and really broke down those students. So this survey isn't comprehensive in that it covers every single student from the US that's studying abroad for their full degree, but it gets a pretty big chunk of them, and I think the trends it helps pull out are nonetheless valid. So let's take a look at what some of the information is. So what they found is that there are over 40,000 students currently earning their full degree abroad, and that's at all different levels. Most students choose to study in an Anglophone country, and Anglophone means English is the primary language. So most students want to go somewhere where they're not going to have to deal with a new language to learn or have to sort of learn how to communicate in. It's also a very diverse group of students that is going abroad. They don't fall into just all one specific degree level or one specific field of study. It really is a pretty good cross sample. And so let's take a look at a little more detailed level about the group of students that are going abroad and what sort of categories they fall into. So first, in terms of degree level and who chooses to go abroad, I'm sure this really isn't totally surprising, but most of the students from the U.S. that are going abroad to earn a full degree are doing so for a higher level degree. It's a little bit easier to, make the decision to go live internationally for 2, 3, 4, 5 years when you're sort of on your own as an adult and sort of living your own life. But not, sort of surprisingly, about 39% of those who are going abroad are doing so for their undergraduate degree. I think a lot of the people that are probably on this in this session are at a point where they're looking at going for their undergraduate degree. So there are a large portion of students currently going abroad that sort of look like you in terms of the degree they're trying to earn. In terms of where the students go, this is a nice little pie chart that breaks down the 13 countries that they studied and where and sort of how it broke out in terms of percent of students going there. So as you can see right off the bat, the United Kingdom is far and away number one. Canada's got number two pretty strongly. So just to sort of sum up the data, when you add up all the numbers, about 72% of the students going abroad in this study were choosing to study in Anglophone countries where English is the primary language. And about 60% of all the students in the survey are choosing to go to some country in Europe somewhere. So those are two sort of big trends that we can identify in terms of where students choose to go. So in terms of degree level, and what students are studying, this is a really interesting chart, and it shows you the different fields of study that people are going abroad for. And the biggest takeaway from this is that there's a really diverse array of subjects that people are going abroad to study. So it's not just languages, it's not just business or engineering. It really is a really broad cross-section across all different academic fields. Really, no matter what your interest is, no matter what career you're interested in pursuing, there's probably a student abroad right now somewhere in the world that's from the US that is earning their degree at an institution overseas that is sort of headed down the same path that you'd like to go down to. So now that we know a little bit about who's going abroad and what they look like, let's look at the sort of admissions process and all that. And someone actually just asked a question, and since some people have joined us a little bit after the beginning, I just want to reiterate, I am going to get to all the questions that are asked. At this point, we're going to collect all the questions, and at the end of the session, we're going to go back through them. But the question of how do American employers view a degree from a foreign institution is a very valid question. We're actually going to get to that in a little bit. So let's start with the international admissions piece. So first, the most important thing about the international admissions process is really going to be on you in terms of doing a lot of research. So research, and research again. And this warrants its own slide. So when you're researching programs abroad, obviously you're going to let your fingers do the walking. This isn't going to be something where you're able to pile into the SUV with your family and go drive around and hit 5 or 10 colleges over a long weekend and really get a lot of experience and see a lot of campuses firsthand. So you're going to have to be doing a lot of research online, and now is a better time than ever to be sort of in this predicament. We've got the internet today is so advanced, and with tools like Google Street View, you can really actually walk around campuses and really get a sense of what the campus is like, what the campus looks like in terms of, where it is. Is it, urban, rural? Does it look like it's in a nice area? Things of that nature. So you can really get a good sense without ever stepping foot on campus. Also, you want to make sure you talk to counselors, both the counselors that maybe you work with at your school, maybe you're working with some sort of independent counselor that can give you some advice on international schools. Also, talk to your network, which in this case is, your friends, family, acquaintances. Maybe you know someone or a friend of a friend knows someone who studied abroad to earn their full degree, and you can get some valuable information from them. Beyond that, just talking with someone that has lived abroad for an extended period of time, for over a year, getting input from them on what that experiences were like, what were some of the challenges, what were some of the benefits, sort of long-term and short-term of the experience, and probably help give you sort of some good things to think about as you are, going through this process. So lastly, you can reference international education specific websites, and there's a lot of websites that are out there that are dedicated to international education. The one that I mentioned before that I pulled that study from, IIE, the Institute of International Education, is a really great resource. It's sort of academic though, so you might not sort of get a lot of sort of actionable information there, but it certainly has a lot of information there. But one of the websites I work with, more specifically, is universitiesabroad.com, which is our company owns and operates, and that's really made more for students that are outside of the U.S. that are looking to come to the U.S. And helping them sort of research their options. Studyabroad.com, which is, again, it's a little banner right above me there. I would recommend this as sort of the best possible research tool for you that really has information specifically focused on studying abroad. The site is designed for the U.S. student in mind that is looking to go abroad. Now, it is mostly catering towards students that are doing short-term study abroad programs, but a lot of the information pages has a ton of good content just about going abroad, about learning abroad, about the process in general. So that's a really, really great resource that you could use to educate yourself a little bit more. And also there's another website that we run that's called gradschools.com, that if there's anyone on this call that is more graduate level focused, is looking at going on to get their master's or higher degree, gradschools.com would have a lot of great information for you, and it also does have a section of schools from around the world that are specifically interested in recruiting international or U.S. students, so that could be a good resource for you as well. But I would highly recommend studyabroad.com, regardless of sort of what level you're at or what type of study abroad experience you're looking for. Would have a lot of great information for you to go through. Okay. So you want to give yourself plenty of time. So, as I'm sure you've already heard, when you're considering about applying to schools domestically, it's a long, involved process. You need to write essays, you need to get recommendations, you have to take tests. And so all this is true of the international admissions process as well. You're going to have to take your SATs, you're going to have to write essays, or ACTs, sorry, as well. You're going to have to, go through all the other steps, except you're going to have to be dealing with time differences, you're going to have to be dealing with eventually applying for visas. So you're going to want to make sure you're building in some extra time if you are doing some research about possibly going abroad for your degree program. You want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time and maybe build in a couple extra months just in case anything unforeseen comes up. So you really want to make sure you know and understand the process where you are applying. Just like the U.S. education system has its own sort of quirks and intricacies that are different from other countries around the world, you really want to make sure that if you're going to be applying to schools in this particular country, you do some research on that country's education system, admissions process, so on and so forth. And because the UK is the #1 destination for outbound US students earning a full degree, we can sort of use them as an example of what I'm talking about. So the UK system, when you apply to colleges there, you actually only fill out one application and write one set of essays, and then you can use that to apply to up to 5 schools in a given year. So you can't apply to more than 5, but you can apply to up to 5. And when I applied to college, I applied to 3 schools. I kept it very simple for myself, but I had friends who applied to 10, 12, 14, 15 schools, and if those peers of mine were looking to do that and apply to that many British or schools in the UK, they just wouldn't be able to. It's not allowed. They don't allow it. Another little quirk of the UK system is that if you're applying to their schools, obviously, I'm sure most people here have heard of either Oxford or Cambridge or both. They're both very prestigious universities in the United Kingdom, and there's a little rule that they call Oxbridge that basically says that students cannot apply to both Oxford and Cambridge in the same year. You can apply to one or the other, and you could apply to one year and one the next year, but you can't apply to both in the same year. That's just the way it is. So that's just sort of an example of a little quirk in the UK admission system that you'd want to be aware of before you sort of try to submit your application to both Cambridge and Oxford in the same year. You wouldn't be allowed to. So something else to think about is aid and scholarships. So, one of the things that might be a little bit different for you if you are looking to go overseas for a program, you might not be able to get the same level of financial aid and government-backed, tuition assistance and things of that nature if you are going abroad. Now, many schools around the world are sort of certified to be able to accept U.S.-backed financial aid, so it might not always be an issue, but it is something to take into account when you're looking into and researching universities. But to sort of counterbalance that, you might not have the same opportunities in terms of financial aid, but you might actually have more opportunities in terms of scholarships. Schools here in the U.S. have scholarship funds and programs that are dedicated towards attracting international schools or international students, and that is true when you go overseas as well. There are scholarship funds that are set up by universities and countries that are designed to attract international students. That could be you. Also, there are funds and countries that are specifically interested in attracting U.S. students. So do a little bit of research. You might find that there are schools you can apply to that have funds available specifically for students from North America, specifically for an international student like you, given where you're coming from. So something you definitely want to do a little research on and look into. Now, the last stage of the process, once you're admitted into a program, before you can actually show up and start moving into your dorm or apartment and start with classes, you're going to need to get your visa. And that process isn't fun. As someone who served as a DSO and sort of helped guide students through this process, it's bureaucratic, it's filling out forms, you're going to have to document your financial ability, generally by sending over copies of bank statements. In some cases, you're going to have to show that you have health insurance, that you have a place to stay once you arrive on campus. You're basically just needing to prove that you are going to be ready and able to sort of take care of yourself once you get abroad, and that there actually is an academic program that has accepted you and is expecting you. So they just want to make sure that you're going to sort of not be a burden once you get over there. So that is a process that takes some time, and again, that's one of the reasons why you want to give yourself plenty of time, is to be able to get through the visa process once you are accepted to a school. And I always wondered when I was growing up, just sort of what a visa looks like, and these are just a couple of examples of what an actual visa looks like. It'll have your picture on it. These generally go just right inside your passport. Becomes a page of your passport, so it will never be separated from your passport, and it's something that will have the information about the school you're accepted into, your sort of immigration status. It'll also have whatever other comments it might have on it, depending on what country you're going to. So once you're going abroad, and once you're sort of becoming immersed in the culture and actually heading overseas, what should you expect? So first, a bit of homesickness and culture shock. So everyone sort of generally goes through a little bit of homesickness when you are going away to college. It's something that is natural. It's something that almost everyone I know went through. I went through it myself. You get a little bummed out not being around your friends and everything's different, and trying to meet new people, and that can just be amplified when you are going overseas, and especially when you're dealing with getting accustomed to a new culture. And if you're going to a country where things are vastly different from at home, maybe you're one of those people that goes to a non-English speaking country, or if you go somewhere where it's just really, really different than what you're used to, it could be a little rough. And so you want to make sure you're prepared for that. You want to make sure you have sort of a support system in place to be able to talk to friends and family at home. Also make sure that you start getting to know the other international students and international students from your own country. There's going to be a community for you to plug into. You want to make sure that you are doing that, so that when you are on campus, you're not sort of feeling isolated or alienated in an already sort of new environment. So travel is something that you're going to have to be dealing with and to a larger degree if you do decide to get your degree abroad. And this, primarily when you are going abroad, if you want to go home for a break or summer or whatever, it's typically going to be a more expensive experience depending on exactly where you end up. So it's something where you also probably wouldn't have the ability to just say, oh, I want to go home this weekend, or I've got some laundry to do, and it'd be great to see mom and dad and some friends and get my laundry done and then go back. It's probably not going to be an option for you. So you really want to make sure that you think about that, and think about the fact that if you are going overseas, you might not be at home as often as some of your peers that decide to stay in the States. So that's definitely something to consider. Now, on the other side of that, or another sort of part of that, is that if you remember, the tuition costs for some of the programs you looked at are vastly different. So you will have, if you're looking at that, you have a certain amount of money that you're going to be able to spend in your education experience. And if you're going to be able to save a lot of tuition, you might be able to shift a little bit of that over to traveling and taking more trips home. Or maybe even you'll be able to take advantage of the fact that you're near a lot of other interesting countries and places, and you're going to be able to travel around to some of the neighboring countries and regions. We saw that about 60% of students choose to go to Europe. As we all know, Europe's a lot of sort of much smaller countries, and they're all close together, and they have a very good rail system. So if you wanted to, you could get out on the weekends and go travel around and take your school breaks as an opportunity to backpack around Europe or go explore new parts of the world and really get out there and see some stuff. So that's definitely something that you'll be able to sort of have as a possibility should you choose to go abroad. Something else to consider is conversion rates in terms of currency. So depending where you choose to go to school, your other expenses besides tuition, so just your food, your lodging, your just everyday living expenses, could either be more or less expensive than what you're used to here at home. Now, sort of most of the countries in Europe that are top destinations will typically tend to be sort of more expensive, in that you're gonna end up paying more than what you would expect to pay in the U.S. for products and services. There are some countries though where you would be getting a great deal. In Greece, for instance, right now the dollar is doing very well, and their economy is not doing so well, and that makes for some pretty cheap lodging and entertainment costs and goods and services. Also, a lot of countries in Eastern Europe, if anyone's interested in going to that region, is somewhere that is generally considered very affordable when you're sort of looking at sort of the continent as a whole. So that's definitely something to take into account in terms of how far your money's going to go once you actually get abroad. Something else to consider is healthcare, and also I'll sort of wrap in insurance into all this. And so most people that go abroad are going to get some sort of travel insurance policy. This will typically cover you in the case of any sort of emergency situation where you might need to get home as soon as possible, and they'll have sort of emergency evacuation coverage that will pay for all the sort of expenses related to that process. Also, it could just cover, everyday sort of medical issues that might arise, and could also cover, any number of things related to specifically traveling and staying abroad for an extended period of time. And also on top of that, the sort of health insurance and healthcare issue is one that's going to vary country by country. When students are coming to the U.S. from abroad, they need to prove that they have health insurance, and that there are policies they can buy and that will cover them, and that will allow them to be issued a visa. When you're going to the U.K., for instance, we'll continue to use the U.K. as an example, any person who is in the country on a student visa is eligible for the UK's universal healthcare system. So that's something that you would not have to worry about when you are in the UK. You're going to be covered in terms of being able to get everyday medical treatment, and that's going to be something that will be taken care of because you have a student visa. So, in terms of now you're living abroad, you're working through your program, and you get to that point where it's time to graduate. And the big question is, now what? What's next? So what are some things to consider? One of the immediate things that's going to be facing you is, are you going to possibly stay abroad? Maybe not in the same country you're in, but maybe you're going to continue to live outside the U.S. Maybe you're going to really embrace the expatriate lifestyle. Maybe you're going to return home. Maybe it's was more of a short-term adventure for you, and you had your fun, and now you want to go home and sort of pick up where you left off. So that's something that you're going to have to think about, especially once you start getting closer to graduation. And one nice thing is that many countries do realize the value of people that are educated. They understand that people with a college degree could become a driving force in their economy. They could build new companies, they could help drive innovation. So most countries will create accommodations that say, if you studied here on a student visa, we'll make it easier for you to get a work visa upon graduation if you work at a company in our country, or we'll make it easier for you to be on a path to citizenship, or make it easier for you to get a resident visa. So that's something that many countries do, and you definitely want to look into that when you are researching your destination countries. Something that we hear about when dealing with students that we talk with is reverse culture shock. So basically, just living in a different culture for so long and something that is so foreign to you, you get used to that. It becomes your norm, and then when you go home, the sort of reverse process and says, oh my gosh, this is all so different. And while it seems familiar, it's going to seem very different. It can be sort of a weird experience for people to sort of be reacclimating to something that was once so familiar to them. So that's something that you might have to deal with, and something that many people that have studied abroad or spent a significant amount of time abroad have written about, and as something that they have to deal with when they return. And obviously, one of the most important questions is your career prospects. And, this is something that you really want to focus on, because while college is about, having the college experience and getting to know new people and getting to know yourself and sort of growing as an individual, the end result of the college experience is setting yourself up for the rest of your life. This is something where you're going to be earning a degree that is going to help you get your first job and a lot of other jobs in your career. So you want to make sure that you are going through this process with a focus on what you're going to do when you graduate. In terms of, somebody asked, how do American employers view a degree from a foreign institution or foreign university? And we're going to sort of touch on that right now. And that it sort of depends. Just like in the U.S., different schools have different sort of rankings and reputations within various industries. The same goes for schools abroad. So, let's say you choose to go to Oxford or Cambridge, one of the, top global universities, top universities in the UK. You're most likely going to be fine in terms of being able to find a job and have people recognize that university on your resume when you're applying for jobs. Not going to be an issue. If you go to a lesser known university, even one that might be highly ranked but this isn't as well known around the world, it could be an issue. And so, one of the things that you can do some research into is looking into what type of career services that university has. Even though they are outside of the U.S., do they have alliances and partnerships with U.S.-based employers? This could also really heavily play into your decision of staying abroad or returning home. You might find that by the time you get to the end of your career, the end of your program, maybe you've had some internships at companies, overseas, and you're in a position where you might have connections where you could get a job very easily overseas, and whereas if you return home, you might be heading into more of an unknown. So that's something to... Sorry. Anyways, it's might be something that you have to deal with. It could be something where if you choose to stay abroad, it might be easier for you to find a job more quickly, or it's really going to depend on the individual university. So definitely when you're talking with counselors, ask them about what type of relationships they have with employers, not just in the country where they're based, but also around the world, also based in the U.S. specifically. So that's definitely something you want to be doing research on as you are, looking into programs. And also, if you are in a program, really make sure you're talking with the career services folks and making sure that you're sort of optimizing yourself for the best possible results when you graduate. I can tell you, when I worked for Kaplan Test Prep, I did a lot of work with career services offices, and the one thing that across the board they all said at all the different universities I worked with was that not nearly enough students are taking advantage of the services we offer. And I saw that amongst my peers when I was at Penn State. When I walked into the career services office with a resume for them to critique and for looking for advice on how to do interviews, they were so eager to help and so ready to make sure that I was positioned for success. It was amazing. And it's the sort of thing that they're not going to force it down your throat. They're going to make it available, and if you come to them and are ready to sort of use their resources, they'll help you. So definitely make sure you are seeking out those resources when you're on campus, and that goes for no matter where you go. That's just a good piece of advice in general. So it sort of, brings us to pretty much the end of the presentation. We'll just do a quick little wrap up. So, who goes abroad and why? We looked at, the reasons you might consider going abroad. You want to make sure, that whatever your reasons are, they're sort of well thought out, and that you have a very sort of specific plan with regards to what your education is. And that should be the case no matter whether you're looking to go abroad or stay here. You want to make sure that the college you're going to is going to be a good fit for you, both in terms of the campus life and the setting and the programs that you're going to have access to. So you really want to make sure you're looking into that a lot. We also know that in terms of the types of students that go abroad, there's really not one set mold that they all fit into. They come at all different degree levels. They study in all different types of fields of study and academic concentrations. So no matter what you're thinking about going into, there's probably a great international program somewhere around the world that could be a good fit for you. Also, remember, as we saw, the cost issue is one that while you might be spending some more money on your flights going back and forth, your tuition cost could be vastly different. When we compared Cambridge and Harvard, it was about a $50,000 difference between 4 years of tuition. That's nothing to sneeze at. That is a very significant sum of money, and that could make a big difference when you're looking at the way that you're financing your college education. So again, you want to make sure you're thoroughly researching your options, and go online, look up the universities, get in touch with their counselors. They're going to be holding online events that you can go to where they're doing admissions events and doing presentations, and you can talk with students. And more schools all around the world are focusing more on international students. So there are going to be resources that are dedicated specifically to students like you that are looking to earn a degree outside of their country of origin. So definitely seek that out. Talk to your friends and family. You never know who you might know that has spent some significant time overseas, or maybe even earned a full degree overseas. So that's something you want to look into. Also, in terms of researching, I can't recommend studyabroad.com. Ooh, there it is. Enough. It is a great resource, no matter whether you're thinking about studying abroad for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or for your entire program. It's going to have a lot of really great resources that are going to be relevant to you no matter where you're going and no matter how long you're studying abroad. We covered some of the differences between education in the U.S. and abroad. So obviously the cost issue is one that is pretty significant. The amount of sort of travel time you're going to be and sort of accessibility to campus is another big issue to consider. Making sure that the schools you go to are going to be ones that are going to be setting you up for your future is going to be very important. Just in general, it again goes back to doing thorough research and making sure that you're fully prepared and making the decision based on sort of very specific reasons, when you do decide to make this sort of leap. And again, your post-graduation plan. So maybe you decide to stay abroad. Maybe you decide to work for a foreign company and really embrace a international business career. Maybe you go back home and are looking to, deal with students that are looking to go abroad. I mean, who knows what you're going to do? But make sure that you are thinking about your post-graduation plans. And again, just to sort of put in a piece of advice that I would have found useful when I was considering going to college is that I know it seems a long ways off, but graduation is going to come up on you a lot faster than you think, and you really want to make sure that you are maximizing your time on campus and while you're in your program to make the best possible situation for you once you graduate. You want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of the opportunities on campus while you're there in terms of joining student groups and doing internships and getting experiences like that. You want to make sure you're taking full advantage of the Career Services Office to make sure that you are putting yourself in the best possible position once you graduate. And so that's really it. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways to stay in touch. I'm sure many of you use Twitter. Maybe you're active. Maybe you just follow people and look. But here are the 3 websites that we talked about today that I sort of referenced that our company operates. Our Twitter handles, so you can follow any of those on Twitter. Again, I would say thestudyabroad.com @studyingabroad is going to be the most relevant one in terms of the content they put out to students that are really actively looking to go abroad. And then you can also feel free to get in touch with me via email, and also you can follow me on Twitter. I also do a fair amount of tweeting focused on higher education in general and really focusing particularly on international higher education. And also my email address is right there on the screen, so feel free to write it down. I am more than happy to answer any questions you might have. I don't know everything, but I can certainly, I'm really good at researching stuff, so I can help put you in touch with the proper resource. If I don't have the immediate answer, but I'm sure I could help you find the answers to the questions that you're looking for. So with that in mind, are there any questions? And we do have some questions that have already come in, so I'm going to address those, and we will see where we go. So, how do American employers view a degree from a foreign institution when applying for a job here in the States after college? So, again, we already sort of touched on that, but just to reiterate, it's something that's going to vary sort of school by school. If you're going to a school that's very prestigious and is that well known around the world, it's probably not going to make much of a difference if, for example, if you went to Harvard or Oxford. You're probably going to be fine either way. If you're going to a program that's a little less well known, you probably want to do a lot of research ahead of time to see if they have a good reputation with employers in the U.S. You can just find this information from talking directly to people at Career Services. You probably could be able to pull it directly off a Career Services website. Most Career Services websites will have some sort of link on their page that says like industry relations or employer relations, and that will go over the companies that they have relationships with. But also, keep in mind that if you're going abroad to earn your degree, no reason you might not work abroad or work for an international company that has operations in the U.S. Being able to have experience in a country where a company is based and then being able to work for the U.S. operations could actually make you sort of a more valuable asset all said and done. You could be someone that has an intimate knowledge of the American market and has, experience being immersed in the culture that the company is based in. So that could be sort of a best of both worlds sort of situation. So Jazz Walker asks, how do you know what universities to apply for? And, Jazz, I would say that the answer to that is you just need to do some research. If you just Google global university rankings, you can get, lists similar to the U.S. and News World and Report list that sort of goes over universities around the world and ranks all global universities. So you can see, what universities are good, what universities are bad, are not bad, but, sort of less well-renowned around the world. So just do some research. And again, just like you would research any other college in the U.S., you can do research on what they're known for, what programs are strong, what programs are weak. And again, look at their career services page, see what employers and what types of companies they are well known in. And that could help give you an idea of where you want to apply. But the ultimate decision comes down to you and what you want and what your goals are. Like I said, I only applied to 3 colleges when I was applying, and I kept it very sort of simple for myself, and that was part of what I wanted to do. But I was sure that all 3 of the schools that I applied to were ones that I would have been more than happy attending. So you just want to make sure that you do a high level of research so that no matter where you apply, no matter where you get accepted, you're going to have, you sort of maximize your chances of having a good time and sort of benefiting from the process. So what are the downsides of studying abroad besides homesickness and culture shock? Well, there could be any number of things. It could be when you get outside of the U.S., there could be, just issues that arise. There was a volcano that went off in, Iceland for a couple of weeks, a couple of months ago, and it made air travel difficult and made, pollution issues, and there's just geopolitical things that go on that are sometimes more of an issue, around the world. There's any number of things can come up that are sort of what are the downsides are. But again, that's something that you need to do your research and make sure that you're choosing an institution where you're going to sort of minimize the possibility of sort of negative things happening. And again, it's something that, we don't know what the future holds. So it's something that you just need to do a high level of research on your end before making a choice one way or the other so that you're going to have the best possible chance of having a good experience. But again, I would caution that one of the things that could be a very serious sort of downside of studying abroad would be the issue of having employers having not heard of the university you went to or not being familiar with it. So again, I can't emphasize highly enough that if you are looking at universities that might not be as well known around the world, do some research into their career services, look into the types of relationships they have in industry, so that you can see if that's going to be an issue or in sort of how that could play out once you have graduated. Okay, so Brandy Lawrence asked a very interesting question. My daughter, an American, has been accepted to Victoria University in Australia starting February, I think 2014. What kind of financial aid is she eligible for from the U.S. government? This is not an exchange student situation. She simply applied because she wants to attend. So first off, congratulations. That's obviously a good accomplishment to be accepted to any university. So good on that. I would say, I don't know directly the answer to that, but I would go to the U.S. government's financial aid form. I would also start by just filling out the sort of the FAFSA, the sort of blanket financial aid form that all students are that are seeking financial aid are encouraged to fill out. And as you go through the process, you might find some information about that school specifically. Also, I would say the fastest way to find that information directly would be to go on to the admissions page for Victoria University, get a contact email where you can ask questions and just ask them directly, is your university eligible for funding from the U.S. government? They will be able to tell you very quickly, and if not, the admissions office, maybe the registrar's office or their financial aid office, they should be able to tell you that as well. But at the same time, I would also encourage you to explore what funding there could be, because she is a U.S. student and technically an international student for when she's going to be going to the U.S. There could be specific scholarship funds or financial aid set up that's supported by the Australian government or Victoria University specifically that's designed for students like her. All right, so that appears to be all the questions. If anyone else has anything else they want to know, ask now or forever hold your peace, as they say. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Again, if you think of anything, if you think you might have a question or maybe have a question that you, for whatever reason, don't want to ask now, feel free to email me. My email address is right there on the screen, and I'd be more than happy to, help you find an answer if I can't give it to you right off the bat. So thank you very much. You've been a great audience, and I'm just going to sort of hang out for a couple more minutes in case any more questions roll in. But thank you very much for attending the session and choosing to listen to me for 30, 45 minutes. Also, again, I would encourage you all, since you are interested in studying abroad, to go to studyabroad.com. It is a great resource for anyone looking to go abroad, regardless of how long they want to spend abroad. So it's going to have a lot of good information about travel insurance, about the visa process, about individual destination countries, and just overall pretty good resource. Yes, and Brandy, thank you. Thank you for all the exclamation points as well. Not a problem at all. Always happy to answer questions. But she brought up the point of she hadn't thought of reaching out to the contact the university to look at funds. But that is something from having dealt with a lot of admissions officials and from having worked with people in career services and admissions offices, the one thing that they always told me is that we're here to answer questions, and they do not really often get that many questions. And typically, what happens is that there are one or two students or one or two families that are asking them a ton of questions and are using them as a resource, and sometimes it gets to be a little bit too much, but for the most part they're happy to answer the questions because it's what they're there for, it's what they live for. They want to make sure that you are fully educated and informed. So go on their websites, find their information, and just email them, or if you have Skype or some way to make international calls, just dial them. Now I can tell you from personal experience of having tried to do business with some Australian universities, the time difference with Australia is one that is particularly difficult to deal with. I think they're anywhere from 15 to 18 hours ahead of us, so they're all sort of just now getting up in the morning tomorrow. So email would probably be the best way to start for a university located in Australia, and just sort of take things from there. Now, one little piece of advice. Many universities here in the U.S. that deal with international students, and many universities and people that I've dealt with at universities around the world, they use Skype a lot. So, and if you are seriously thinking about getting or going abroad for an extended period of time, I would highly recommend getting a Skype account and learning how to use that tool, because it's one that is used fairly often by people who have gone abroad and they're living abroad, because it's convenient, and that's sort of just the tool that everybody uses. So I would not be surprised at all if you talk with an admissions official and they invite you to speak on Skype, so definitely become familiar with that tool. So any other questions at all? All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for attending and for being a great audience and for the good questions that came in. Again, please find us online, follow us on Twitter, email me if you have any questions. Be more than happy to either answer your question directly or connect you with someone who could. So thank you again so much, and good luck as you are researching your education options and are sort of going through a very sort of important part of your lives as parents and as students yourselves. So good luck with everything, and again, do not hesitate to reach out and ask questions if you have any at all.